This is IBM Museum, and I have the bench behind me a little bit cleared, least enough space to go through and work with some items. I'm actually rather excited about this. Let me get turned around, get off the webcam, so I know that I have the full camcorder view to work with. Now, this is the system I call my maxed Model 30. Has that nice internal SCSI hard drive. It's a gigabyte in size, external SCSI CD-ROM, the 4869 360 KB diskette drive, just for working with the 360 KB 5.25-inch diskettes if I have to. And now, of course, and just the one, I've gone through and pulled the SCSI-based zip drive out of the equation, put the terminator back on the back of the SCSI CD-ROM once again, but I have this parallel port zip drive, and I've been able to transfer files even with the demo version of the palmZIP driver. And I do have a lot of plans for that palmZIP now. The regular IO Mega driver should have run on this because I've got a V30 CPU in here, but I must be going through too new a version or something else. I just couldn't get it to go. palmZIP is an easy way to get a parallel port zip drive working. I'll include the link in the video description. Let me go through and throw it up on the screen just for a moment too, and get myself back up there for just a little bit of time. But I'll include the link. And even for the interesting plans I have for this, I've looked around and I want to go through with the PC convertible. You've seen that on the previous videos of my channel. I've gone through, I've got the video capture, able to do that CGA output, get nice display up on the screen. We went through the startup diskette that goes through and demonstrates the system parts that you can go through and explore the system as IBM said it. I want to try even the palmZIP driver with that. And it's even got, so it has an 80C88 CPU on it. So it wouldn't be able to run the IO Mega driver. That's a little static 88, it's going to be Intel 8088 based CPU that with the suspend functions of the PC convertible, it's able to go through there and resume once you push that power button again, take up where it left off. I'm going to go through and test it on the PC convertible. And I've got even, most of the models I've got where I can do 512 KB RAM or 640 KB. And that just has the 2 diskette drives, 720 KB. I'm not aware of any implementation of effectively a drive, be it solid state, even with some of the modern retrofitting, or where someone has made a slice that can be added to the back of the PC convertible to go through and have effectively some storage there. So I'm actually try the palmZIP driver with this parallel port zip drive, and we'll have, effectively 100 megabyte hard drive that's, it's probably even more comparable in speed to the hard drives of that size, and just the ability to run some stuff on the PC convertible. So stay tuned for that. And other than even my maxed Model 30, I do have that so-called minimal Model 30, the one that I've got with the initial BIOS. We did that character set capture of the fonts, and I don't even have Sims in it. So I've got That unit has 128 KB, same planar effectively as this does, but I just have the 720 KB diskette drive on it and no hard drive. It's got the parallel port, same as this. It should be able to run. Granted, I can find an early enough DOS version that I have around. I should have 3.3, maybe even a version 5 or something like that might run. I'll just have to kind of check with the palmZIP driver to go through on it to kind of just testing that palmZIP driver out a little bit more. And, it was a great value to go through and to be able to get this zip drive so I can move contents around. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this instance. I'll go through and we'll get started, get over to the system that I've got booted up. This is that Maximal 30. And it's gone through, and the way, of course, it's set up, I'll get myself back for the webcam set up so at least I'm on view somewhere with this. And I may minimize or hide that later on when we get through on the program. But I went through and I've copied over this Visual Basic for MS-DOS. And that was a program. There's only a single version that came out. And this is at the time that Microsoft has also had the Visual Basic for Windows that was quite a bit more well received. And of course, probably the main factor there, just that DOS operating system getting left behind a little bit, as it were, and people were moving into Windows, the Windows 3.1, Windows 95 later on, Windows 98. And the Visual Basic for Windows went through and kept pace with that. And you could run it on Windows NT, and they had 16-bit versions that became into 32-bit versions, and really went through and even changed later on to become VB.net, and the product matured, but not so much the Visual Basic for DOS. And I wanted to get back to that environment a little bit for some of the programs I'm trying to work on. And I'll get the keyboard up here in my lap. Now, it's important to note for this aspect that the way that things are loaded here, you see the palmZIP driver loaded there. And that's effectively for drive D, as it's labeled on the screen. My CD-ROM, since it has the mscdex driver in the autoexec.bat file, which is processed after config.sys file. So it is drive E for the CD-ROM. We'll not even be using it in this instance, but it's there and available. So it's on the D drive that I copied over files, but I've gone through, since I have the nice 1 GB hard drive space, and I think I've even got quite a bit of that free. I think I've almost got the whole gigabyte free. But I've got going through, and of course, the first time I run through the directory command, you can see I've even got quite a bit of stuff there already. But going through, and it's by date, that's indexed here a lot of the time. But yeah, it reports over a gigabyte of space. So I've been able to copy the files for that Visual Basic for DOS back over to the hard drive of the system. Now, the nice thing here is, and I'll get showing the books and other things else, because I have this on the zip drive, I'm able to move over the files to this as well and put files on the system very easily, get files off, which I've done in this instance. This allows me with the zip disk to go to, I say a more modern system, Windows XP, still pretty dated, as a factor of, released 20 years ago, but having a little bit more conventional of the Windows environment And the Visual Basic, going through and putting those on, it's just flat text files that I can go through and just work with a text editor under Windows XP, having a zip drive on it in the internal bay, and do a lot of the coding that is just is a little bit define the machine types and things like that that I'm going to work on. That'll be rather easy for me to do on the machine. I won't necessarily run the Visual Basic program on that modern machine, but I have the ability to at least to code on that newer interface a little bit at my more of leisure than having the MAL 30 up and running in this case, or another platform. So let's go through, and I created, as you see on the bottom there, a batch file just as a run VBDOS. That goes through and loads the mouse driver. It goes through and gets to the appropriate directory, and actually loads some of the library that's needed for the Visual Basic for DOS if you're doing the things like I'm doing here. So there we go through and we see the mouse driver load. And this takes a little bit of time on the MAL 30, even though it's got that NEC V30 CPU upgrade. It's still running at 8 megahertz. It's still a little bit dated. The SCSI hard drive is faster than what the original would have been, but it takes a little bit of time. And this is just getting in the Visual Basic environment. So what we're going to do here, and we do have the mouse effectively, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to open a project that I've been working on. And people seeing that SIT name, SIT, recognize it for this System Information Tool from IBM that I've run on previous videos. I'm actually trying to go through and come up with an update to that program of the same general nature of a character-based full screen that can run on these systems. And it does, as we saw, it gives the feedback there, and it takes it takes a little bit of time to run, but to even load the program. And here, just I can go through just real easily on that more modern system, the Windows XP, and edit these just in the text files. Here are my declarations. I have some of the modules. I talked about taking myself off of screen for part of it. Over on the right-hand side, I have the forms of those FRM names, and the BAS, same for the basic code modules that are to this program. And the one thing I found interesting, I'll show this right off the bat as we go through, run start. And again, it takes some time. We see the, on a more modern system, we would see it kind of flash through all this, the binding and other aspects of how what it takes the program to load in this Visual Basic environment. This is probably a little bit intense for this level of system. It just goes through. It's not actually running anything in the DOS screen. That's just the screen setup. And we've gone through to where this is in the, of course, the full screen mode. Of course, for my aspect ratio, I'm stretching a little bit with the way I'm presenting over HDMI. But I've gone through, and all these buttons over here on the left do not, there's no functionality to them. I've got to go through and populate code just as I have for the Visual Basic for Windows aspect. I do have the one button of the MAL and processor information, and I've got showing there the hotkeys. It's got that capital P in white lettering, just showing that that's a hotkey. If you do an Alt-P, it would go to that screen. Some of this will be rather easy to go through for the operating system information and things like that as well. And I just wanted to point out, we go to the help about, this is almost 20 years since I've been going through and coding for this. I planned the box down below to go through and have other text in there and things like that. And of course, I'm putting in as my name. I'm not going by any of the moniker of IBM Museum or anything like that. And I have it labeled as set up, just kind of a play that it's an update for the System Information Tool. And just what I'd phrased it as. Now I did go through and I did code a tiny bit today in the only block that works for this, the model and processor information. And I don't have, in fact, that's what the at leisure coding will do for me a little bit more. It's the machine name. I can go through there and start coming up with the if then else statements of analyzing the information I'm getting from the system to provide the model as a PS2 Model 30. And it's interesting to note that IBM's version of the System Information Tool only has the known machines of it are only 386 SX and above. It does not recognize, even for the PS2, the 286 based CPUs on PS2s, or the 8086 for the Mul 30, Mul 25 at the low end. I did go through for coding on the processor. Right in the center there, I put that 8086. I don't know if I'll have to see if I can get code in there as enough. If I have access to enough ability in Visual Basic for DOS to tell the difference between an 8086 and a NEC V30 CPU. We'll have to see. But I'll at least be able to identify the model. And I might, for the processor, I can go 8086 or V30, NEC V30. Some of the things like the L1 cache enabled and stuff like that, I've got as placeholders probably in this case. The enable disable processor function supported. That is a failure ultimately. It doesn't support that call, and I'll be able to code around that. For the CPU ID and CPU stepping, I'll be able to put those as non-applicable, just n/a. But it does decode the BIOS state. It does decode the model, the submodel, the BIOS model and submodel, and the BIOS revision. I could probably do some formatting to have a leading 0 on that BIOS revision. System board POS ID, planar ID, it doesn't have any, so that's correct in saying none. And then I'll get populating where that machine name will fill in for the PS2 Mul 30 or whatever other type of PS2 or systems I choose to cover can be decoded. But just going through and having the ability to code a little bit better for this is going to be quite a bit better. I'm going to go through, I'm going to get myself back on the screen here, and I'll probably even, I can go through and switch over. Well, I don't know. I've got a good camera view here too. But I wanted to show, the Visual Basics. I just picked up this Visual Basic for MS-DOS Workshop, a good book, gives me good coded samples to go through and work with. And so didn't have the diskette in it, but it's got listings for the programs and real easy enough to generate and do what I want to do with the examples in the book. And of course, I have all the Visual Basic reference and the programmer's guide that were included with Visual Basic for DOS, just to go through and have those manuals around as I go through and work with that newer system to kind of get it coded a little bit better. And I anticipate I'll be able to move a little bit quicker as long as I can figure out how to go through and access the information here. Operating system will be easy. Video information, well, we'll see. Memory information, I'll be pretty simple, mouse and keyboard maybe. But it's a lot more code to go through and just to be able to analyze the system a little bit more based on the response of the system, to go through and list that information. I'll have to go through for the adapter information if it's not a microchannel system, to go through and gray that stuff out. But I thought it was worthwhile to go through and show, in this case, of the what I was working on 20 years ago and still was incomplete. And just as I probably a lot more busier back then too. But I'll get working on it again and hopefully have a little bit more of a developed program that I can go through and release and just give it away for free. Just a little bit of an update to the IBM System Information Tool using this Visual Basic for MS-DOS to do this, and that way covering a lot of the lower end systems. And this does take some resource. We'll have to see when the executable is finally done. Hopefully it won't be too large, or I can go through and compact or come up with some other way to cover it better, to at least be a little bit better system information tool, and go through probably in that about box or whatever and say, hey, if you got a higher end system, it's able to run Windows or OS2, whatnot, because there is an OS2 version of the system information tool. That's a system information tool. I'm going through and I'm talking quickly, but that's a lot more involved, and I need to go through and mimic a lot of that representation too. I was seeing that just a span of probably about 6 months ago, a little bit more than 6 months ago. That about 6 months ago, that I need to go through and those screenshots I have it to get a little bit more development of what I can do in both MS-DOS and Windows for my updates of the system information tool. Maybe even get to where I have a native OS2 version as well. Wouldn't that be cool? But I just wanted to give an update, a little bit of what I'm working on, and expect to see those videos, even working with the palmZIP driver to get the zip drive on the PC convertible. I haven't seen anybody else do that on YouTube, and there's just a little bit aspect of me just pulling out an older MS-DOS version, PC DOS version, that I can boot from that diskette to load the driver, and testing on that minimal Model 30 as well. So stay tuned for all that. So if you enjoyed this content, go ahead and click on that like button, please. And as always, subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. But this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you.